Of the dozens of knitting machines in this Beijing sock factory, only 2 are running. 80% of their products used to be shipped to the US. But the trade war between Beijing and Washington has stretched the company's finances to the limit.
Some of our US clients have already moved their orders to Southeast Asia, where the labor costs are lower. This has a big impact on us. The impact will get bigger if the trade war between China and the US escalates.
Trade talks with the US are at the top of the agenda at the National People's Congress this week in Beijing. China's parliament is set to rubber stamp a revision to the foreign investment law to satisfy a major demand from Washington. The change would eliminate the rule that required foreign firms to transfer technology to their partners in China. Analysts say this will bring both sides closer to a deal and help the Chinese economy move away from its reliance on exports.
In the future, we will reposition ourselves as a capital exchange center, so this new law is in line with the general development goals of the country. China needs to attract more foreign investment.
The trade war with the US is partly to blame for China's slumping economy. Growth slowed to a 3-decade low of 6.6% last year. Officials in Beijing say better trade relations will benefit both sides.
If history teaches us anything, it is that China and the United States stand to gain from cooperation and lose with confrontation. And cooperation is the best option for both sides.
US and Chinese negotiators are reportedly close to settling their trade dispute. Details are expected to be finalized during a summit between US President Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping this month. Sock makers in Beijing hope the two leaders won't get cold feet. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
And joining us from London is Martin Jacques. He's a senior fellow at the Department of Politics and International Studies at Cambridge University. He also wrote the book, When China Rules the World. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. So we're seeing some optimism out of China. That's good to see, with the Shanghai Composite surging to its highest level since June. What's behind this rally?
Well, I think what's happening is that what was really depressing the Chinese stock markets last year is shifting in the opposite direction. I mean, last year, what was weighing on the markets were two things, really. First of all, the strong pressure that the Chinese government was exercising to try and reduce the problem of debt, a process of deleveraging. And secondly, of course, the concern about US-China trade, or trade war to be more exact. And I think both of these now are beginning to recede, and people are getting more optimistic. And the reason they're getting more optimistic is the government is now making it clear in one way or another that it's going to try and reinflate the economy, increase growth, by, for example, tax cuts and infrastructure spending on the one hand, and secondly, as your program has just been talking about, the chances of a US-China trade deal seem to be better than they have been for a good while now.
China's annual Congress gets underway this week. What can we expect to see come out of that in terms of measures to stimulate the economy further?
Oh, I think basically what I've just said. I mean, they've been talking about tax cuts for a while, and they're probably going to be quite large, actually. And they're going to pump up the economy with more infrastructure spending. I mean, this is, if you like, this is the balance. This balance was shifting one way or the other. Is, you know, China's walking this, and very successfully so far, it has to be said, this tightrope, and now they're going to shift in a slightly different direction. And we know that they've found it very tough this year to keep the growth rate at around 6.5%. So maybe at the Congress there will be an announcement for next year that the growth rate target will be reduced somewhat, maybe to 6, as low as 6, or maybe 6.25. We'll have to see. I mean, it's all speculation, obviously, at the moment.
All right. What about the the trade war, as you mentioned, with the U.S. and China. Things are looking pretty positive for a deal there. So where does that stand right now? And could we see a deal soon, as reports have suggested?
I think probably your guess is as good as mine on that. I mean, I think the biggest shift is taking place in Washington, or rather in President Trump's head, rather than in Beijing. I think that Trump is worried about. He is very worried about the state of the U.S. stock market. He regards that in some degree or other as a barometer of his success. I think this is mistaken, but anyway, that's the way he looks at it, and it's clear that this is acting as a depressant on Wall Street, and so I think that Trump is now inclined to make a deal with China. Whether those around him support that, I suspect that the hawks are very much against the deal that I think Trump will do. But Trump's his own man, as we all know by now.
Where do things stand with the Huawei CFO who's being held in Canada, and could that derail some of these warm and fuzzy feelings that the U.S. and China are feeling for each other lately?
Well, it's a good question, actually, because this kind of coup has been staged by the Americans at least once or twice. Actually, it's not entirely clear whether Trump knew about what was happening. John Bolton certainly did. One can't be sure, but I think that Trump, up to a point, has got the bit between his teeth now and looks as if he's going to make some kind of deal. But of course, what will be crucial for Trump is to be able to present it as a great success, as a victory. His negotiations style worked and so on. In reality, the one thing the Chinese are not going to give way on is their economic approach, their economic policy between the state and the market.
Okay. Martin Jacques in London, thank you so much.